Welcome back. This is Meccan Revelations, part 6. If you would like to start at the beginning with part 1, you can click here. That's the playlist. It's fun. I looked at the analytics, and a lot of people are arriving at this series being suggested at the end of other videos, usually Christian videos, in one in particular in which there's like a couple, a man and a woman, I don't know what their relationship is, sitting in a big wooden room with crosses on the wall, and they're reading numbers. Cool. Numbers, from the Old Testament. All right. I guess this is similar. I'm guessing that the YouTube algorithm is focusing on Revelations and the fact that the word God and things like that are mentioned here and there in these recitals to say, yeah, I think the people who watch this would also want to watch this. Meccan. It's Mecca with an N at the end. See? There's the Kaaba. Just so you know where you are. Do you know where you are? To the return viewers, welcome back. You know where you are, and probably won't surprise you too much to know that on December 18th, today's December 6th, right? Yeah. On December 18th, The Divine Milieu by Teilhard de Chardin will be arriving. And the fourth playlist, the fourth section of Chicken Philosophy, fourth Chicken Philosophy podcast. They're all listed as different podcasts, actually. There's Chicken Philosophy Black Books, Chicken Philosophy Arbatel, and Chicken Philosophy Meccan Revelations. 3 separate podcasts out there in the podcasting land. All right, I'm just going to jump into it. Now that I've rambled on enough. So this is the 6th. The electricity went off. And I know it's just the fuse. And I seem to be the only one who goes outside and flips it back on when it turns off, which means I'm going to be sweating before this is over. And then, once it's over, because I'm committed to this, I'm not just going to get up and go turn on the fuse and come back and edit it together all nice and neat. I'm going to wait another 28 minutes or so and switch it on then. It's nice and cool now because of the AC, but it's better for noise pollution. What is that humming sound? It sounds like some kind of... I'll just read. 6. Section on spiritual stations, parentheses, I need my magnifying glass. I didn't turn on any music today. Is that all right with you guys? Hey, Editor Edward, could you play some music? I'm sure whatever you've chosen is very nice. All right. Continue. 6. Section on spiritual stations, parentheses, Vassal al-Makamat, end parentheses, chapters 462 to 560. Apart from the final 3 chapters of the Meccan Revelations, most of the 99 chapters in this vast section, parentheses, itself a quarter of the entire Al-Futuhat, end parentheses, are devoted to Ibn Arabi's personal identification of a long series of spiritual quote, poles, end quote, parentheses, here in the wider sense of the emblematic, quote, chief, end quote, of a particular spiritual type, station, or mode of realization. Poles. End parentheses, and the profound inner spiritual realization of a particular spiritual, quote, motto, end quote, parentheses, Hijr, often familiar Quranic verses, divine names, or other traditional formulas of dhikr, D-H-I-K-R, and invocation, and parentheses, that becomes fully, quote, illuminated, end quote, for those participating in that spiritual station. As with the preceding section, these chapters are usually too rich and complex in their contents to be summarized in any meaningful fashion. However, I will demonstrate, first of all, nice to meet you. One of my names is Ben Teilhard. You might have heard of Frater BT or VH Frater BT. The BT part stands for Ben Teilhard. So I will now invoke Teilhard, and according to this, that motto will shine or something. I don't know. Oh, it really works, right? Does it work? No? A little? Maybe? Not so much. It was supposed to shine. Wow, it's like hiding from the light. What's the angle where it'll hit the camera? Anyway, aside from all of that silliness, this levity going on, yeah, that light really isn't doing anything. I'll just leave it here just for fun. Each of the different 3 chapters of this section is a long, quote, recapitulation, end quote, in different domains of the contents of the book as a whole. Is that distracting? Yes. All right. Thus, chapter 558, parentheses, partly translated in this anthology, end parentheses, is an immense discussion of the influences and underlying realities of each of the 99 divine names, period. Full stop. Right. Chapter 559 is devoted to an enigmatic summary of the divine, quote, secrets, end quote, concealed in each of the preceding chapters. And the vast concluding chapter of, quote, spiritual advice, end quote, frequently copied and reprinted as a separate volume, brings together a host of selections of practical, ethical, and spiritual advice drawn from scriptural sources, earlier prophets, companions, and saints, and other, parentheses, not specifically religious, end parentheses, ethical writers. What lends it all its power and lasting importance is the way all of the preceding, quote, illuminations, end quote, will have radically transformed for readers who have faithfully followed Ibn Arabi up to this point. Well, then, it doesn't really include me, even though I've been aware of him for about 20 years-ish. I can't say I've been following him up to this point. This is kind of my entry point. Perhaps it's yours too. Anyway, yes, I am leaving all that in. I don't give Editor Edward much work to do beyond choosing music to play. Is the music nice? I hope he chooses something good. Choose something good. Their inner awareness and appreciation of the actual unimaginable unimaginable complex of meaningless intentions and spiritual realizations, which are in fact encapsulated and briefly expressed in each of those particular bits of spiritual advice. In the larger context of the classical schemas of spiritual, quote, journeys, end quote, it is also an eloquent reminder of Ibn Arabi's characteristic insistence that the final unending journey for the fully realized soul is always the, quote, return, end quote, quote, from and with God to the creatures, end quote. It is an elaborate reminder of the ultimate finality and responsibilities of spiritual realization, which are never far from Ibn Arabi's sight and intention. In this anthology, chapters 470, parentheses, quote, towards sainthood, end quote, Chittik, and 558, parentheses within parentheses, and there was an end parentheses after Chittik, and 558, parentheses, quote, divine names and theophanies, end quote, comma, Chittik, end parentheses. Suggestions for further reading. We haven't even gotten, well, why not put that at the end? I'm just saying. Suggestions for further reading. The relative profusion of translations, biographies, and studies of Ibn Arabi and his writings in recent years has created something of a fortunate dilemma for those readers new to his work who might want to explore the perspectives opened up by this anthology. In addition to works already mentioned in earlier notes, the following suggestions for those without any prior background in Ibn Arabi or the Islamic spiritual and philosophical traditions are limited to English language books, parentheses, partly because many of the most important recent French studies have been well translated into English, end parentheses. However, readers at home in Spanish will now find a number of important recent translations by Pablo Benito, Victor Paleja, and others. A happy sign of increasing interest in this native son who, parentheses, like his near contemporary Moses de Leon, end parentheses, must surely be counted among the enduring contributors to world civilizations and religious understanding. For Ibn Arabi's life, immediate historical context, and a basic summary of his central teachings, one can now readily recommend S. Hertenstein's italics, The Ultimate Mercifier, The Spiritual Life and Thought of Ibn Arabi, and italics, parentheses, Oxford, Onca/White Cloud Press, 1999, end parentheses, which is the first volume explicitly designed to introduce these points to a general, non-academic English-speaking audience. The numerous photographs of the cities and sites where Ibn Arabi lived, taught, and prayed are especially helpful for anyone unfamiliar with these cultural centers in the Islamic world. See Ada's Quest for the Red Sulphur, The Life of Ibn Arabi, parentheses, Cambridge Islamic Texts Society, 1993, end parentheses, ably translated into English, is a longer, slightly more academic introduction to the same subjects, giving greater detail on Ibn Arabi's own teachings and cultural notes in different fields of medieval Islamic scholarship. Her Ibn Arabi, The Voyage of No Return, in italics, parentheses, Cambridge Islamic Text Society 2000, end parentheses, is a shorter, more accessible introduction to Ibn Arabi's life and teachings for Ibn Arabi's own vivid depiction of his earliest Spanish and North African teachers, companions, and friends on the Sufi path. R. Austin's italics Sufis of Andalusia, parentheses, London, Allen and Unwin, 1971, end parentheses, remains an indispensable and endlessly fascinating source. Finally, William Chittick's italics The Sufi Path of Knowledge, Ibn Arabi's Metaphysics of the Imagination, and italics, parentheses, Albany Sunni, SUNY, all caps, 1989, end parentheses, offers a voluminously illustrated, detailed, and clearly structured introduction, parentheses, based on hundreds of shorter translations from the Futuhat, end parentheses, to virtually all the key facets of Ibn Arabi's teaching. For the Basils of Wisdom, parentheses, Fusus al-Hakim, end parentheses, and the subsequent Islamic traditions of commentary, probably the most readable, parentheses, and certainly the most comprehensive and clearly explained, end parentheses, introduction remains T. Izutsu's pioneering, italics, a comparative study of the key philosophical concepts in Sufism and Taoism, Ibn Arabi and Lao Tzu, Chuang Tzu, parentheses, Tokyo, Keio Institute, 1966, end parentheses. Despite its reliance on the more Avicennan philosophic commentary tradition of Al-Kashani, for the novice in this field, not quite a novice yet, the English translation of T. Burckhardt's original French version of a few key chapters, selected chapters of the Fusus, the Wisdom of the Prophets, parentheses, Oxford, Bishara, 1975, end parentheses, is considerably more approachable than R. Austin's complete tradition, Ibn al-Arabi, the Basils of Wisdom, parentheses, New York, Paulist Press, 1980, end parentheses, hyphen, which has long helpful prefaces to each chapter. An ever-increasing number of recent studies have elaborated the far-reaching influences of this work and its commentators throughout later Islamic culture and religious life, from the Balkans to China and Indonesia. See, among others, the voluminous anthology of related texts from many key figures in the later Islamic humanities, parentheses, though the subtitle might suggest something quite different, end parentheses, included in S. Murata's The Tao of Islam, a source book on gender relationships in Islamic thought, parentheses, Albany, Sunni, S-U-N-Y, again, all caps, 1992, end parentheses. The 4-volume version of later Turkish commentaries on the Fusus, translated as Ismati Haki Bursevt's translation of and commentary on Fusus al-Hakim, parentheses, Oxford, MIAS, 1986, end parentheses. And perhaps the most fascinating, S. Murata's recent far-reaching study of several Neo-Confucian Chinese Muslim thinkers profoundly influenced by Ibn Arabi, Chinese Gleams of Sufi Light, parentheses, Albany, SUNY, 2000, end parentheses, full stop. End of paragraph. Coffee break. Sip, just a sip. Oh, shoot, where were we? There we are. On a more widely accessible level, M. Sellis's italics, Stations of Desire, Love, Elegies? Yes. From Ibn Arabi, parentheses, Jerusalem, Ibis, 2000, should now replace R. Nicholson's frequently cited versions, parentheses, the Tarjuman al-Shwak, a collection of mythical odes, end parentheses, as a superb introduction to the central poetic dimension of Ibn Arabi's work, which is, of course, quite evident in the, quote, keynote, end quote, poems that introduce virtually every chapter of the Meccan Revelations. The even more recent translations of Ibn Arabi's prayers by S. Hurtenstein and P. Beneto, italics, the 7 Days of the Heart, end italics, parentheses, Oxford, Aqua, 2001, end parentheses, suggested something of the profound spiritual and devotional, italics, practice, end italics, underlying and always assumed in Ibn Arabi's writings. The translator's introduction is especially helpful in that regard, and our forthcoming volume of Ibn Arabi's powerful shorter writings on practical spirituality, spiritual practice and discernment should make that central dimension of Ibn Arabi's work more widely accessible. A more demanding, but absolutely fundamental and groundbreaking work on Ibn Arabi's understanding of, quote, sainthood, end quote, or in parentheses, walaya, a study that has become indispensable for understanding the spiritual and conceptual underpinnings of this central feature of popular Islamic devotion and piety in every corner of the Islamic world, even today, is M. Chodzkiewicz's The Seal of the Saints, Prophethood and Sainthood in the Doctrine of Ibn Arabi, parentheses, Cambridge, comma, Islamic Text Society, comma, 1993, end parentheses, full stop, no, comma, ably translated, but still to be studied in the original, if at all possible. Finally, G. Elmore's recent study of and translation of Ibn Arabi's early Angwa Mughari, Islamic Sainthood in the Fullness of Time, Ibn Arabi's, quote, Book of the Fabulous Gryphon, end quote, parentheses, Leiden, Brill, 2000, end parentheses. Illustrates, we're still in the middle of a sentence, the many challenges of deciphering, much less translating, the extraordinarily cryptic, poetic, and symbolic writings from Andalusia and North Africa that preceded the composition of the Meccan Revelations. The most extensive translations of the Futuhat to appear since the original publication of this anthology are certainly William Chittick's two massive volumes, the above-mentioned The Sufi Path of Knowledge and The Self-Disclosure of God, Principles of Ibn al-Arabi's Cosmology, parentheses, Albany, SUNY, 1998, end parentheses. They are to be followed by an equally long volume of the translations on related areas of cosmogony and ontology. Complementary to those translations in that they focus on the humanly immediate, active dimensions of eschatology, spiritual realization, and Ibn Arabi's phenomenology of spiritual life, are a series of volumes on the Futuhat, including many translations and studies originally delivered, parentheses, and sometimes published, end parentheses, as public lectures and conference papers over the past decade, which we plan to publish in book form in the near future. These include the translations of the eschatological chapters 59 through 65 and 271, parentheses, plus related pages from other chapters, end parentheses, already promised in the original notes to this book, parentheses. Ibn Arabi, I'm really looking forward to getting to the actual translation of Ibn Arabi. But how much more of this have we got? Half a page, and then another incomplete page. We'll get this done. And then next time, it looks like there's a little bit of introduction before we get back around to where we started in episode 1 with that one stanza. And then we can pick up where we left off. That'll be fun. That'll be what this has all been about and leading up to. Okay. Let me take a sip of coffee. How's everybody doing? How's that music? Is the real Noah? No idea. Oh, good idea. Good idea. Let's do that. Let's do that. That'd be great. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So, where were we? On a more accessible level, yes. Of which there's evident. Keynote, yes. A more demanding, yeah. Oh, we're here. Okay, all right. Wow, I don't even remember what I read and what I didn't read. Looking at it. And at least 2 volumes of thematic explorations of Ibn Arabi's treatment of spiritual topics in the Futuhat, accompanied by full translations of key corresponding chapters. Indeed, the level of scholarly understanding and worldwide interest in the Futuhat has approached the point where the possibility of a serious collective effort to begin to translate at least the opening Farsi parentheses, more than a quarter of the entire work, end parentheses, is now becoming seriously considered. Such a task should be realizable within the next decades, which makes me wonder if it has already happened. Anyone wishing to keep up with the translations and studies of Ibn Arabi, and more particularly with the dramatic unfolding of worldwide academic research into his profound influences in all aspects of later Islamic religion and the Islamic humanities, should refer to past and present issues of the Journal of the Mu'addin Ibn Arabi Society, parentheses, Oxford, now in its 3rd decade, end parentheses, with contributions that have often been delivered first by world-renowned scholars increasingly from all regions of the Islamic world, and the 2 international symposia sponsored by the Ibn Arabi Society each year, parentheses, at Oxford and Berkeley, end parentheses. The journal has helped to create an active worldwide network of scholars, students, and translators whose impact is increasingly evident in, among other fields, the number of international conferences now devoted to the, quote, greatest master, end quote, and his later Muslim interpreters each year. This worldwide collective effort to rediscover the prominent influences of Ibn Arabi and his teachings on central dimensions of Islamic culture from West Africa to China and Indonesia is not just an academic project of historical archaeology. Those involved in each country and region concerned are well aware of the contemporary and future significance of Ibn Arabi's understanding of the roots of Islamic spirituality and translation and tradition for any lasting effort of renewal and revivification within a global civilization. Finally, the truly great books in this field, as in any other, do not age, but only become more apparent with the passage of time. The following 2 classic volumes, both originally published in French, although fortunately available in reliable English translations, were certainly not intended for beginners in the sense we introduced earlier. Both are the mature, richly evocative, and moving fruits of an intensely personal, lifelong reflection on the central issues and perspectives of all of Ibn Arabi's accessible writings, with visions and emphases that are radically different, yet ultimately astonishingly complementary. The first is Henry Corbin's italics creative imagination in the Sufism of Ibn Arabi, and italics. The second is Michael Chodkowitz's italics, An Ocean Without Shore, Shore. Is that normal? Ibn Arabi, the Book and the Law, and italics, parentheses, Albany, SUNY, 1993, end parentheses. One could readily apply to both of these remarkable works what Ibn Arabi says of the Meccan Revelations and his ideal readers in his introduction, quoted above. The, quote, preparedness, end quote, such works require is not simply or even essentially academic. Reading them gives some sense of how diverse yet powerfully transforming the influences of Ibn Arabi have been and will continue to be. Signed, James Winston Morris, University of Exeter. And that's our, we're next time, Meccan Revelations Part 7, we're going to be jumping in to actual English translation of the Meccan Revelations by Ibn Arabi. That was 6 episodes of introduction. Oh my. But we're done with the prologue. We're done with that little skit at the beginning of the Shakespeare play where he runs through the whole play really quickly for some reason. Sometimes they'll do that in opening credits. They'll have like animated cartoon characters like acting out everything that's going to happen in the movie. But anyway, okay. Looking forward to that. Hope everyone's doing well. And until next time, I bid you...